Well, good morning, and thank you guys for joining us once again. Today is Wednesday Wellness. It is all about the wellness of being well, staying well, and first off, getting well. Today we're going to talk about expressions through art. Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast has been very thorough in making sure that you know about every type of session that we offer. Wednesday Wellness, or Wellness Wednesday, is all about the mind and the body and welling it. I gotta tell you an experience. I had the beautiful opportunity this past week to go to an art session. And what we had to do was draw flowers. Flowers in their vases. How was it? It was fun. Art is a therapeutic way to be able to release the mind of all the stress and anxiety that we have. Did you know that there are many people who would rather do art and express how they're feeling through their art? Let me show you what I mean. During the fun session that we went to this past weekend, we were shown how to do the flowers in the vases, and we all had our palette with the colors on them and our brushes. I decided, since it was springtime, to water the flowers. We didn't have any instruction to put rain, but what I saw from the artist's depiction was rain. Just little speckles. And so I thought to myself, why not make it flood? So I began to put hard white rainbow that were little painting in the areas so that the flowers looked like they were going through what was heavy rain. Art therapy. We're going to talk about it today because I think it's an important integral part of the Healing Center's session so that you are aware of the expressions through art. Are you aware of expressions through art? Just one moment. Expressions through art means your expressions dealing with your feelings and how you think about it. And I gotta tell you, what a beautiful thing to experience. We're going to talk about it. Art can be in music, any creativity, through journal writing, and it can be expressed through drawing or painting. Don't you think that's important? I want to talk about why we have expression through art. Expression through art. It is all about how we feel. Expression through art is expressing, emotion. We're able to show through color, through our feelings, through our brushwork when we're painting, how we feel. We think about boldness of colors. We think about brushwork. We think about the emotion of something when you look at a painting. I'm going to tell you something. Going to that art show, being a part of that art class was something very beautiful. We have it here, but what I really wanted was to be in the moment, having not taught it, to get the feeling, being the one that was on the other side of the spectrum, which means that I would be the one that would experience all that it had to do. Now, there are many people that express themselves. I am not an artist by any chance, but I learned so much from the art and painting session. Now, on the other hand, good morning, Trish.
Good
Trish
morning.
is our musical lyricist, and I get inspired through her music. I want you to be able to know that a lot of us cannot express ourselves through words. And in the early stages, as you start to develop as a child, you begin to draw things to be able to express yourself. How many of you have ever saw a blue dinosaur that a kid has drawn? Maybe you yourself have drawn that. A green dinosaur, a big dinosaur, and maybe even the tiniest dinosaur. All of those are expressions of what a child sees in their visual. Keep in mind the word visual. As we were doing our painting, everyone had a different spin on it. Now, we could have done exactly what the teacher said as she showed her art, but we all decided that we wanted to be expressive. The friend I was sitting next to did something different. The people in the back, all of them did something different. But why? What does it mean? We know that through our own experiences, we all saw what it was that we were going to paint. But all of us experimented with the colors a little differently. Why is that? Because life's perception, we could be looking or experiencing the exact same thing, but come out with a different view. Come a little closer. I said that we could be looking at the same thing or experiencing the same thing, but come out with a different perception. So my experience, the way that I thought about drawing the flowers in the pot or painting the flowers in the pot was different. Are you still here, Trish? So it was different for me. Now, what's the reality? When we do an expression through art, we are emphasizing or conveying our idea about emotions and experience. And we are looking at it in our viewpoint, in our own eye. How do you express? Trish, how do you express?
I express through obviously music. That's me if I can put it into words, but if I can't, um, I express through drawing or just any color. Like sometimes I don't know what to draw, and I just put a lot of colors together because that's how I'm feeling at that moment. And I recall me thinking about sometimes I don't draw pictures. Sometimes I just do patterns. I just draw shapes and then put different colors in it. Like it doesn't make sense to people, but I can understand it. Like I get it. So that's how I express my emotions through art and music. Well, they're both art, but through different types of art.
Since I'm not a drawer, I have no skillfulness in drawing. When I drew my picture, I began to see what it really looked like after we painted the background black. That was our assignment. And as I looked at the pictures, my flowers looked a little wilty, but that's okay. How many times have we saw that in a rainstorm? When I was done with that picture, it actually brought it to life, which is the irony of what the pictures really look like. They look like they were wilted flowers, but yet there was life in those flowers because there were color in the flowers. Never realizing that black symbolized for me at the art studio dark, intense, and how we see things. You know, sometimes we can exaggerate things. We can be strong about something and we can use intense colors. Now, I'm going to say something to you, and I want you to think about three colors. Ready? Mine are orange, purple, and green. What are yours, Trish?
Mines are red, green, and blue.
Okay. And those of you who are listening to us, we want you also to pick what your colors are, your go-to colors. I like orange because orange really means bright for me. It looks great on me, and I think orange is a happy color. Green is another one of my colors. Love green because green is a state of wellness in the world that I live in. Of course, I am a life coach counselor. And purple because purple is a deep, intense thought. we gravitate toward what our experience is. We talk about a lot of color in the world of Vibe Talk, Facing the Lion podcast, and Healing Center. What does it all represent? When we think about art, there are many artistes. Van Gogh. Trish, can you think of an artist?
Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah. And such, and therefore. We want you to be able to visualize your feelings. In school where we come from, we were taught to write. The classes that I can think of that I had in school was English and creative writing. We were in those classes having to write constantly, starting with, as you go to preschool, pre-K, kindergarten, you learn how to write your name. Let's talk about expression. I was noticing as my grandson brought me a paper because he wanted me to write, to fix a book for him, make a book for him. His little friend at school wrote his name. And the name was backwards, but that was his name. Why? Because in a child's eye, that's what they see. And ladies and gentlemen, it does not mean dyslexia, because almost every 5-year-old and 4-year-old I know, that's normal. So don't panic when they write their name backwards. That's their visual. Today we're here, though, to talk about art through expression. How do you express your personal feelings? If you ever have been in an art studio, an art gallery, even at your home computer, notice the way each artist is. You know each artist by their characteristic. You know each artist by what they're going to take a picture of. You know them. You ask them, what is that? What made them paint it? And they will tell you the story behind it. How do I know? Because as a retired educator for children in a classroom or child education, every child has drawn a picture. Every child that I've ever met. And if you don't ask them, they're going to tell you what it is. What are they expressing? Their feelings through the picture that they've drawn. You know, we think about the mere use of a paintbrush. We need those things in order to paint our picture. There were tiny brushes, medium brushes, and larger brushes, all different shapes and sizes. And really, when you picked up that tool, you were the master of that tool, because in that tool of the paintbrush, you were going to have your hand guided by the paint that you use to show your expression. We think about this. When we think about being expressive or expressions through art, there are many styles. Have you ever been asked, why did you draw that? During child's play, one of the things that a lot of psychologists do is when they want to know about child behavior or family behavior, they will oftentimes have a child draw what they are seeing in their environment. Courts use this as evidence and study of the behavior of that child. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about your expressions and what you are seeing when it comes to the art of life. And one of the things that we have going on right now, ladies and gentlemen, is expressions through art. When we first introduced expressions through art, we had it separated, and it was on Wednesday. Why was it on Wednesday? Because I felt like art had to do with the mind, and the wellness or the well-being of the mind was going to help us express how we were feeling. Now we do it in any art. Today we will do it today. So when you express something, you are expressing your experience in life through color, through styles. Trish, you talked about shapes. I've even seen, like, if I have been in an amusement park, people actually take shapes, like you were talking about, Trish, and they really form lively pictures out of a shape. Back in the day, I used to watch the Popeye show. If you know that character Popeye and Brutus, they had a matinee, and that's telling my age, but I don't mind. I'm 57, and I don't mind at all. During that show, Tom Hatton, and you can look him up with Popeye and Friends, he would draw, and I would love to see him do shapes because you never knew what it was going to be, but he was such an excellent drawer. I was always fascinated. Now, what types of drawing do we do? When we look at art, we look at symbols, we look at places, we look at things, we look at people. Those are all experiences, but they're important. Why is it important to do expression through art? What do you think, Trish?
It's crazy because we just had this question in my class. So I think it's important to do expressions through art because it allows people to see see themselves in a visual way, because sometimes we can't get the words out. We can't put it into words. So just putting it into color and making it whatever we're feeling, making it become on paper. It's like, okay, I see how this looks to me. It gives us some imagery of our emotions. And also, I feel like it's a coping mechanism for us to understand ourselves as well if we feel like others don't understand us. So that's what I think.
Yeah. And the reason we're focusing on our art or expressions through art is because we want you to know that you can do that. Yes, you can become a part of that. Art through expression is how you feel, as Trish just said. You, you know, did I mention that I was not a skillful artist? Yes, I did. And you've heard me say it time and again. But I was able to mimic through paint. What I started to realize is although the picture was already drawn for me, it was the expression and how I was going to paint that. Because if everybody was in the room and all of our pictures were exactly alike, would it have made a difference? No, because it would be bland, it would be boring. But everybody in the room had a different version of what they saw when they picked up that paintbrush. Let's think about that. What are the benefits of expression through art? Well, one of the things is being able to have a peace of mind. One of the things is calmness. When we're exercising calmness, we think on focusing on what we're doing. And if you are not an artist, when I was a little girl, I used to color for hours. And I would color and my mind would be very calm. For those of you who like to color, I'm not really a big fan of, how the paint by number is on the apps these days. Go get a coloring book, if you will. You've got a tablet, okay, get an app. But the reason I say that is because when you develop that habit, that's one way of your mind being able to rest. I want you to think about the benefits. And I want you to be able to think about your brain and the stimulants that your brain does. I was so into painting in the art class that I didn't even realize the less anxiety. That has an effect on your brain when you think about it because you're so focused on what you're doing at the point. Didn't realize how relaxed I really was. Time had flown by. What's going on in your brain
I
when you
can
draw?
relate to that.
Trish, go ahead.
I was saying I can relate to that because I had social anxiety. So it was very hard for me to focus sometimes. So what will help me is sometimes I'll doodle on the side of my loose leaf paper on an assignment. I would get in trouble for that, but I would doodle because it helped me calm myself when I'm around people. And music class, it helped me forget about the anxiety as well. And art class, like time flied when I was focused on art.
Yeah, and it does. When you are thinking on art, the drawing, creative expression through clay, writing, cake decorating, all these things, it is a limitless field of creative connection. It's good for you. It's a way to communicate. Imagine no words, but you're able to draw. They used drawing at a art therapy, and there were members of the military that suffered from traumatic brain injury. And in that group, not only were there people with traumatic brain injury, but also caregivers of cancer patients. As they use that, they realize that their level of stress calmed down. Art. Think about that. Art serves as a delight to the soul and the mind. It helps us to be able to think about navigating our problems. As I continued in my artwork, I noticed that one piece of the leaf on the flower was missing. I also noticed that I had a bigger leaf, but as I began to paint in the background, there was the flower leaf. Found it. So that is very true. How are we going to fix it? The mistakes. You know, a lot of mistakes that artists have turned into billions of dollars. But I want you to think about how you navigate through life, how your brain helps you when those mistakes or those flaws come up within yourself or within your environment. We talked about the brain. I always want to talk about the brain because the brain is so beautiful. It gathers information. It tells us what to do next. And it also helps us to be able to survive and thrive. Did I give up on the art? Or no? I continued to stick with it because all I knew is that I needed to find the leaf because I had used a series of brushes. When we look at a drawing, we see the color. How many of you see the color first before you see the image? I notice color.
I do too.
Yeah, I notice color. Even in photography, if I do a photo shoot, I always notice the color. You see, that color is able to tell you something. And then you see the image. You know, being that I am a photographer, I like to shoot pictures raw and natural. I don't like anything staged. But sometimes I will say, this is what I want from the picture. And that will be done in such a beautiful way. So our brain is picking up on these images. And we're able to, at every moment when we're looking at something, precisely a picture or precisely a piece of art, we're facing that. And I want you to realize that your piece of art is your piece of art. You know, when you get a canvas with nothing on it, and the teacher says, or the instructor says, I want you to draw something. What's your thought to that? Do you say, what do I draw? do you draw the first thing that comes to mind? If you get a bunch of 5-year-olds and you give them a canvas and you say, I want you to draw something, do you know that they never ask you what to draw? They just start automatically drawing. Trust me, I've had so many years of experience working with the pre-K and kindergartners. But we as adults, we think what to draw. Everybody doesn't draw the same thing. So today we're going to get the opportunity through guided instruction as to how we perceive things. Because the art therapy is all about perception, what we see. There are unimaginable possibilities with drawing. When we think about our brain, we say, what are we going to draw? Should we use crayons? Should we use markers? Should we use artist pencils? Should we use paint, watercolor? Then we start to think about engaging in what we are drawing. And what we draw helps you to bring in your emotions. And I'm going to tell you something. With that art studio class, my emotion was nothing but pure joy. How do you feel? We want always to think about, what are we going to do? You see, the child is always carefree, without worry, without anxiety. They're going to draw something. And that means even if they're copying to their little friend next door, but they always figure out how to navigate through, what do I draw? That's why they don't ask. Because they instinctively are little pros at it. We think about the risk of drawing or art. It gets us going. Our blood starts flowing. We begin to think about the people around us. You know, I saw it was probably 10 people in the class. We think about the way we do things, the benefits of art, expressions through art. You know, we think about art being able to benefit us, relieve us from stress, and also our brain releases a hormone that helps us to relieve that stress, creating. And that's why young children are so good at what they do. And so good at what they do. We want you to understand that drawing is not art that we have to be so intensely involved with, or saying that we're not an artist. I learned that I didn't have to be an artist. I didn't have to be an artist, but I just needed to have the brain. Did you guys know that there are people with no hands that know how to paint? And they use the paintbrush with their mouth. Did you guys know that? That's amazing. I want you to think too that art, how it helps you to just flow in life. Why am I using that word, to flow in life? Because they say art is the imitation of life. Sometimes we are guided. Our brain tells us what to do. And for the thinking people, our brain says, yeah, that feels good. So our flow and ebb in life, we go with the flow or not. We learn to survive or not. So I want you to know the drawing has a beautiful result. It's able to put you in a reflective state, relaxed state, and you experience a sense of pleasure or joy. Wow. Think about our marvelous brain and the areas that are affected in our brain. We think with our brain, our frontal and our central areas. We think about our whole brain. Today, I'm not here to tell you what kind of art to do, but I want you to be able to engage in the art of life. Now, your brain instantaneously wonders what to do and how to do it. Here's another thing that my brain did. When seeing the colors that we were going to use, I was instantly drawn to the colors. My eyesight was attracted to those colors. If you're ever in a center group with a bunch of children, some do not like to get their hands in the paint because they say it's messy, while the other half loves to get in the mess of things. We call that finger painting. How many of you have ever done finger painting?
I have.
Yeah. Self-expression, doing that in art. We want you to understand that your art not only is an expression of yourself, but it is an expression to others, bursting with colors and shapes and signs. Have you ever been to an art show with a bunch of kindergartners and their art is on display? They're not worried about the size of the house, if the house has a roof, or if the house looks like it's about to explode any minute. They're not worried about the dog that looks like he's eaten so much that he needs to go on a diet. They're not worried if their parents look like sticks with balls on their head, because it is an expression of them. And so as we go and we look at the art of these little people, it all stands for expression from them, how they see things. I've saw so many expressions of art. I've seen round dinosaurs, blue dinosaurs, green dinosaurs, orange suns, white suns, green suns, and it's all a tell story. You know, when I went to the art class, we were supposed to stay in the lines, right? I didn't stay in the line. I just painted, really. But as the picture became clearer, seeing the bigger picture, wow, it made me feel as if I could really fix this as we began to piece the picture together. We look at these pictures, we look at the art of life, and through our expressions of art, we are able to process emotions. Maybe you're going through something. Maybe you're experiencing something. You're able to cope by looking at your creativity, what you can do. You're allowing yourself to experience your own creativity as you don't notice that you have released anxiety, as you understand how to, we call that guidance. I want your art next time to be able to connect to you, your brain, and your emotions. We think about shapes. We think about lines. We think about colors. And we have something to visualize. We think even about the experience as we create. Sometimes people don't have the words to be able to precisely say how they feel, but they'll say, let me show you. Many people carry or have sketchbooks. I know my nephew has sketchbooks, and when I see his sketchbooks, they're filled with drawings of different things. And as he draws, I anticipate what it's going to be. One night, as we were watching a movie, I noticed that he was drawing the character Woody from Toy Story. Every detail. No copying, just drawing Woody. And I was, hurry up, in my mind, put the hat on him, because I knew it was going to be Woody just because I've seen Toy Story so many times. As he completed his picture, it was so beautiful, so detailed. By the way, our lion, the one that has no paint on it, he drew that. So what's going through our minds when we make art from life? I want you to be able to guide yourself through your process of life and notice that every experience can be to you like that art. If you were to draw a picture of it, what would it look like for you? Now, here's the part that I want you to think about. You ready? We're going to try something. I want you to think about expressing anger. If you have time, I'd like you to use color for anger. Here's another one. When you think about burdens in your life, what are the elements, if you were to create them in a drawing? What symbolizes burdens to you? It could be thunder, rain, whatever you'd like. Now I want you to think about your emotion and how you're feeling right now. And I want you to use colors, shapes, or lines. You know, in Vibe Talk, we always face the face with pain. Not an easy thing. But I want you to draw something that represents a painful experience. And I want you then to tear it into pieces. And then put it back together in a new way. You get the guidance? Here's another one. The time that you felt joy. What colors represented you in those feelings of joy? All of us were children. We spoke of children. Now, express what your inner child feels and make your pictures childlike. When a child draws a house, it never ceases to amaze me. The house is never proportioned, and that's okay, because that's the way they see it. Also, if you've got some time, I want you to think about the elements of a breakthrough that you've had in your life and what that looks like in a drawing. And last but not least, I want you to imagine that you are looking at a door, and that door is going to symbolize for you letting go of an emotion or a memory. I want you to draw what it looks like to you on both sides of the door. These are all experiences that helps you to use your mind to cope with life skills, to perceive it as you see it, and to be able to express it. One more. Here's another one. I want you to choose colors that represent how you're feeling right now, and I want you to fill your whole page or canvas with them. Try it. I think you'll like it. We'll be right back with Trisha's Treasures. Right back. Facing the Lion podcast. Facing the Lion podcast. We're back with Trisha's Treasures. Trish?
So, as I was listening to the podcast, I got curious about what artists that paint and draw have actually used their expressions and feelings of life experiences and emotions in their art pieces, and we got quite a few apparently. Um, One of them, her name is Frida Kahlo. She made paintings about how her and her husband they had issues, and she made 200 of them, and 55 of them are self portraits of her emotions during certain times. And we have Van Gogh and Edward Munch. They both of them have made art pieces about going through mental health issues and dealing with and what they struggle during that time was mental health issues. And I thought it was interesting because some of the paintings I've seen before, and I had no idea that's what that painting was portraying, but now I see. It makes a lot of sense. And I it also inspired me about how a lot of things can symbolize lots of emotions. For example, one of the paintings has someone sitting in a chair and they have a blindfold on their eyes, and their background is like gray and blackish. That's the background. And to me, now that I'm looking at it, it reminds me of just being in a dark state, and it feels like you're blindfolded in a dark room and not knowing where you're going from here, being lost in the place that you are and having no insight of how to get out of it. That's how I see this painting. And that's how expressing yourself through art also helps you, because sometimes you're wondering, is what is this feeling that I'm having? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it anger? And the funny thing is, when we say those words, it matches with images in our minds. Isn't that crazy? Like for anger, for me, when I think of anger, I think of a balled up piece of paper in flames. That's what anger looks like to me, because I hold in a lot of my anger, but it's showing, like the flames are there. It feels like I'm holding it in, but it's very visible. They can see the fumes. They can see it. and and it's like that's how I view anger, depression. How I view that is like a desolate area, like in the desert. Like there's nothing there. Like there's no hope. I don't see anything but being buried in the sand. Like that's all I see in depression. Like that's what I see. And but joy, things with joy, what I see with joy, I see a sunset. Because for me, joy is bright, it's warm, and it's happiness. So when I see those things, it's a sunset for me. That's joy. And you'll be able to see it in my my latest music, which is Kiss of Music, because I feel like music, it's warmth, it's expression for me, it's joy. So that's why I chose that, created that sort of cover art for my music and the expression of the cover art. But if you don't know, or if you're confused on how to express yourself, and if you're not ready to talk about it, that's okay. That is okay. That's why expression through art, we we don't discriminate on the kind of art that you do, because at the end of the day, it's about you. It's about how you feel. And we're not going to tell you how to feel. We're not going to tell you what to draw, because, as I recall, something my art teacher would say, if you draw a circle, that is still art. Anything can be art. That's what she used to tell me. She would be like, "Here, guys, just draw something today. Just draw anything." And I would tell her, "I don't know what to draw. What am I supposed to draw?" And she would look at me and she would be like, "Just draw a circle. If you draw a circle, that's art. That counts." And so that circle turned into a moonlight on a riverbank. That's what it turned into. That circle turned into a sunset. That circle turned into just in the city, in the alleyway, and the circle is just like the outer part of the end of the alley. That's what that circle turned into. So anything can be anything can be art, and art is a way to learn how to express your emotions, because you do have them.
That was very, very, very nice. I always anticipate Trisha's treasures, and Trisha's treasures can be now heard on our YouTube page. Go there. By the way, Trish, I like the thing you did on the spring, the flowers. It's all an expression of us. Remember, everyone has something to imitate in the art of life, whether you're skillful or not. Take that skill, hold tight to it, and what you see is your visionary of art. Why? Because art means wellness to your mind, body, and soul. I want to thank my beautiful co-host. Amazing your wisdom is. Thank you, thank you. And I want to thank my amazing audience, our amazing audience. We look at you guys, we see that you guys are taking seriously our post. Trish arranges all of that on our YouTube. Thank you so much. Um, I got to sit yesterday because I wasn't feeling quite okay, and I did some music therapy for another form of art that is in our relaxation center. We'll be talking about that, but we don't want to spoil the music for you. And Trish will get to hear that this week. And boy, did it come out nice. Why do we have art? Why do we have expression through art? We have that to make well your mind, your body, and the mirror of your soul. We have it to keep you well, to wish you well, and to continue to be well. I wish you well for this Wednesday. Wellness. Thank you. Because I don't want you just to make a resolution. I want you to think about. I was really about the news that they might got provided. I really took my time with it.
vibe with it. I took my time with it. I really live the ride with it. Yeah. You can finally see a better you when you get the vibe with it. Yeah, when you get the vibe with it.